so unusual. Now, I'm a kind of a high touch sort of person, you know. So when I was teaching, I really needed the reinforcement of having people looking at me and responding to me, kind of like what you're doing now. So, how do you? Have you always operated in this fashion, or did you kind of moved into this sort of role?
Just like the showing the two things that I'm learning, this is a total learning experience for me as well. It's all new to me too. I know in the general public they're learning these channeling is what it's called, where people are actually in conferences now, where teachers go. They're back channeling and they have a chat going on about it. Well, what they do with that, they're finding that some people are distracted and they're talking about something not completely non-related. But a lot of people are really picking up on a lot of the things that are happening, and then they have a log of that back channel. So maybe not that day, but in the future, that whole dialogue is a lot richer because we got to hear, you know, what somebody over there was thinking at the same time. So there's pros and cons to all of it. I mean, just like that, I mean, which one do you like better between the two I showed? It depends on who you are and what your purpose is. So I wouldn't say, you know, back channel through everything. We don't do this whole talking about the test all the time. So, you know, they're not used to that in here. So definitely there's that caution, and I'm totally with you on that. I would like to throw another question out to you guys. How many things have you learned in here that you've been able to incorporate into your other classes? Has there been anything that, you know, the tech stuff, that now you can do some things better in your other classes, you know, and that's a whole nother issue. Should we have a class that's that and not through math, but.
Well, here just recently, Molly and I, we had an AP, and a lot of people here, we had an AP Human Geography test, and we didn't know a lot of the answers, and we were able to look up the answers, and instead of having to dig through everything in the internet, we had our resources already from this class that made it that much easier to find the answers that we needed for the things that we were looking for in our AP Human study group.
Yeah. And like you can talk to other people on TalkEd, and like we've made a bunch of different groups for like different classes. Like there's like a chemistry group and an AP Psych group, and
just around the world type of thing, or in the school, or
in the school, like
really?
Yeah, we can talk to other people in other classes on TalkEd, and it's really cool.
So here's something I was reading recently. I read an interesting book. You know, a lot of people complain about American education nowadays. You know, reform is a big conversation. In fact, some people would say what you're doing here is an example of educational reform, except you're an experiment of one largely. And maybe Mrs. Hardy with her friends in the school are beginning to do a few things that are much different than the other high schools I attend. So this book was saying, you know, we get compared, and I read these things where the American education doesn't do very well in international tests against other industrial countries. And you may have seen some of this stuff. However, this particular writer argues that, frankly, we're actually doing quite a bit of good things. And in spite of not doing well in international tests, and this has been since the 1960s, so even when I was a kid, arguably, we still have the #1 economy. And that's one example of what good education does. So he argues that it's about having opportunities to be creative and innovative. And actually, as we move more towards testing, I know Mrs. Hardy talked to you about kind of how to understand the CSAT test, that's the testing part. That tends to kind of stifle creativity and innovation and kind of broad education. So here's my real question. Do you find that you are more creative or less creative in this class, or no difference? Yes?
We're so much more creative in this class because we're doing projects for everything we learn. Like, we can be creative in the way that we know how to be creative as different people. Like, Gus can be creative with like music, and other people can be creative with drawings, and I can be creative with pictures, and like, it's just, we can all be creative in the way that we know how, not just like, we can be so much more creative in this class than we can in other classes, in the way we do things, in the way we learn.
Yes?
We're also more creative in that, like, learning the math, we realize we don't have to learn it from the textbook. Like with Molly and Gus making the little catapult, and then like, we're doing the street project and working on selling the beads and earning money for them. So And so we don't just have to use the textbook to learn the math.
Good. Other comments? Yes, sir.
I agree with what she said over there, that there's so many more opportunities to be creative in this class compared to others. There's just with the projects and how we can learn differently in this class, it gives us more opportunity, and most people in this class take that opportunity to be more creative.
So, I'm going to get ready to go here, but how many of you will take the CSAP tests this spring? How many of you, let me just quick, how many of you are 10th graders? That gives me sense. Now, you know, the way the CSAP test is designed, it actually gets harder as you move up through different grade levels. So the state average on the CSAP for advanced or proficient is around like 30%. Do you see yourself being in the proficient and advanced category? Interesting. Good. I'm just curious. Maybe we have discovered something. Thank you for your time. I really